The year was 2157. Earth had finally managed to build ships that could travel faster than light. It wasn't perfect technology, but it worked well enough to start exploring nearby star systems. The people of Earth were proud of what they had built. After all, they had gone from simple rockets to warp-capable ships in just over a century. Captain Susan Miller stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, Earth's flagship. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen more of space than most humans alive. At 42, she had spent more than half her life serving in what was now called the Earth Space Defense Force. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Officer Peter Walsh, looking up from his screen with confusion. "There's something big coming toward Earth. Really big." Susan walked over to his station. "How big are we talking about?" "Bigger than anything we've ever built, and it's slowing down. It's like they're using some kind of technology we've never seen before." The bridge grew quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, it seemed that intelligent life had found them first. "Send a message to Earth Command," Susan ordered. "Tell them we have a potential first contact situation." Within hours, strange ships appeared in Earth orbit. They were beautiful in a way human ships were not, sleek, with curves that seemed impossible to build, glowing with soft blue light. The largest was at least 5 times the size of the Defiant. Earth governments quickly organized a response team. Captain Miller was chosen to lead the diplomatic meeting because of her experience and calm temperament. Along with her went engineer Alan Carter, a quiet man with thick glasses who had helped design much of the Defiant systems. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Confederation, a group of 7 different species who had joined together centuries ago. Their leaders were the Vexari, tall beings with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors slightly as they moved. Admiral Zortok, the Vexari commander, spoke perfect English, having downloaded the language from Earth's broadcasts. "We welcome you to the greater galactic community," he said during their first meeting aboard the Confederation's massive carrier ship. His upper arms were folded across his chest while his lower arms gestured as he spoke. "Though we must say, we are surprised you've managed to achieve warp capability with such primitive methods." Susan kept her face neutral. "We're quite proud of what we've accomplished." "Yes, I'm sure you are," Zortak replied, with what seemed like a smile, though it was hard to tell with his alien features, just as a child is proud when they first learn to walk. The diplomatic meetings continued for days. Each time, the aliens made it clear they thought human technology was laughable. They requested tours of Earth's ships, and Susan had no choice but to agree. When Admiral Zortak and his team of engineers walked through the Defiant, they didn't try to hide their amusement. "You still use physical buttons?" one of them asked, running a finger over the control panel. "Your life support systems are so bulky," said another. "And your warp drive. It's fascinating you can travel faster than light with something so inefficient," added a third. Susan felt her face grow hot, but she maintained her professional demeanor. "Our technology may not be as advanced as yours, but it served us well." Admiral Zortak stopped in the engine room, looking at the massive warp core with what could only be described as pity. "Your vessels are crude, inefficient, and frankly, embarrassing," he told Captain Miller. "These metal cans would not survive a day in real space combat." Engineer Carter, who had been silently following the tour, finally spoke up. "What kind of weapons do your ships use?" The Admiral seemed surprised by the question. "We primarily use focused energy beams, of course. Clean, precise, and lethal when necessary." Alan nodded, making mental notes. Susan noticed he was paying close attention to everything the aliens said and showed. After the aliens left, Susan found Alan in his workshop, sketching designs on his tablet. "They think we're stupid," she said, sitting across from him. Alan didn't look up. "They think we follow the same technological path they did. They don't understand that humans developed differently." "What do you mean?" "The Confederation focused on elegant designs and energy efficiency. They built beautiful ships that could travel great distances without using much fuel." Alan finally looked at her. "But humans? We built warships, Susan, Even our exploration vessels are built to take a beating. Susan considered this. It was true. Human history was filled with conflict. Space exploration had begun as a competition between nations. Even now, when Earth was mostly united, they designed their ships with potential threats in mind. "Do you think they're a threat?" she asked quietly. Alan shrugged. "I think they're arrogant. They see us as children, and in my experience, people who think they're superior rarely have good intentions." Over the next few weeks, Earth governments signed preliminary agreements with the Confederation. The aliens offered to share some basic technology in exchange for access to Earth's resources. Many people were excited about the future, but others remained cautious. Susan was promoted to lead a small fleet of Earth ships that would work with the Confederation on joint exercises. Alan Carter was assigned to her team as chief engineer, with orders to learn as much as possible about alien technology. The night before their first joint mission, Susan couldn't sleep. She stood in the observation deck of the Defiant looking at the stars. The Admiral's words kept echoing in her mind. These metal cans would not survive a day in real space combat. She hoped they would never have to find out if he was right. But something in her gut told her that the Confederation's friendly face might not tell the whole story. What Susan didn't know was that Engineer Carter had already begun redesigning key systems on all Earth vessels, incorporating what he had observed from the alien ships. And in a secret facility on Mars, Earth scientists were developing new weapons that the Confederation had never encountered. The aliens had mocked their ships, but humans had one advantage the Confederation didn't understand. They had been preparing for threats from space long before they knew such threats existed. And if those threats ever became real, the aliens would learn that appearances could be deceiving. 6 months passed since the aliens arrived. Things had not gone as smoothly as many people hoped. The Confederation seemed friendly at first, but their true nature began to show over time. Lieutenant Kate Wilson sat at her desk aboard the ESS Intrepid, reviewing reports from various Earth colonies. She was the ship's intelligence officer, responsible for analyzing information and finding patterns others might miss. Kate had sharp features and alert eyes that rarely missed details. She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear as she studied her screen. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered to herself. The door to her office slid open and Captain Jason Howard walked in. He was a solid man with a calm presence that made people trust him immediately. "What doesn't make sense, Lieutenant?" he asked. Kate pointed to her screen. "These reports from our mining colonies in Tau Ceti. The Confederation ships have been making more visits lately. They say they're just conducting routine surveys, but the timing seems suspicious." "Suspicious how?" "We just discovered a rich deposit of rare minerals there last month. Our miners barely started working, and suddenly, the aliens are very interested in that exact area." Captain Howard frowned. "The Confederation has access to hundreds of star systems. Why would they care about our small mining operation?" "I don't think they like that we're expanding on our own," Kate said. "They expected us to rely on their guidance, but instead, we're establishing independent colonies." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth Command. Captain Howard read it and his expression darkened. "Gather the senior officers in the briefing room," he ordered. "We have a situation." 20 minutes later, the leadership team of the Intrepid sat around the conference table. Captain Howard stood at the head, his face grim. "I've just received word that Admiral Zortak has issued an ultimatum to Earth government. The Confederation is claiming ownership of the Tau Ceti system. They want us to withdraw all personnel and equipment within 7 Earth days." The room erupted in angry voices. "We were there first," exclaimed Navigation Officer John Parker. "They can't just claim a system we're already mining," added First Officer Maria Diaz. Captain Howard raised his hand for silence. "Earth Command has rejected their demand. They've ordered us to Tau Ceti to protect our interests there." "Are we expecting a fight, sir?" asked Weapons Officer Greg Foster. "I hope not, but we need to be prepared. The Confederation has made it clear they consider their claim legitimate." After the meeting, Captain Howard found Engineer Alan Carter in the engine room. In the months since first contact, Carter had been transferred to the Intrepid to implement his modifications to more ships. "Alan, how are those upgrades coming along?" Howard asked quietly. Alan wiped his hands on a rag. "Almost finished. The new shield harmonics should be able to withstand their energy weapons better than before, and the weapon modifications are complete." "Will they work?" Alan shrugged. "In theory, yes. The Confederation relies on energy shields that block energy weapons. They've never encountered our kind of kinetic weapons before. Their shields might not be designed to stop physical projectiles. Let's hope we don't have to find out," Howard said, though they both knew that hope was fading fast. 3 days later, the Intrepid arrived at Tau Ceti, joining 4 other Earth ships already stationed there. The small fleet formed a protective barrier around the mining colony on the system's 4th planet. Kate Wilson worked around the clock monitoring Confederation communications. She discovered something interesting while analyzing transmissions between alien ships. "Captain, I think I've found something important," she said, entering the bridge with a data pad. "The Confederation isn't as unified as they want us to believe." Howard looked up from his command chair. "Explain." "I've been studying their communication patterns. The Vexari give orders to the other species, but there's tension there. Some of the other aliens seem reluctant to follow Zortak's commands about confronting us. You think the Vexari are pushing this conflict more than the others?" Kate nodded. "The Vexari are definitely in charge, and from what I can tell, they use their technological advantage to keep the other 6 species in line. This isn't a confederation of equals. It's more like an empire." This information troubled Captain Howard. He sent a detailed report to Admiral William Jones at Earth Command, who responded with new orders. "Hold position and do not fire first, but defend the colony if attacked." On due. The 7th day, 30 Confederation ships appeared at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. They were arranged in a beautiful formation that reminded Howard of a flower opening. The 5 human ships looked tiny in comparison. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Lisa Garcia announced. "On screen," Howard ordered. Admiral Zortak's face appeared. All 4 of his arms were visible, suggesting he was making a formal appearance. "Captain Howard, you were ordered to withdraw from this system. It belongs to the Galactic Confederation by right of discovery." "With respect, Admiral, Earth ships discovered this system and established mining operations before any Confederation presence was noted here," Howard replied calmly. Zortak's skin shifted to a darker shade. "Your primitive species doesn't understand galactic law. This system was cataloged by our survey ships centuries before you left your atmosphere. We have no record of any claim markers or notices when we arrived. Surrender immediately or be destroyed," Zortak stated, ignoring Howard's point. "Your primitive vessels stand no chance against our superior technology." The screen went blank. Howard turned to his crew. "Battle stations, activate the Carter modifications." Throughout the small human fleet, crews rushed to their positions. Engineers activated the new systems that Alan Carter had designed based on his observations of alien technology. On the Confederation ships, the aliens prepared for a quick victory. Their long-range sensors showed the human ships powering up, but the energy signatures were confusing, different from what they had observed before. "What are they doing?" one of Zortak's officers asked, looking at the readings. "It doesn't matter," the Admiral replied. "Begin the attack pattern. Target their engines first." The Confederation ships moved forward, their formation shifting into an attack posture. They expected the humans to maintain distance and try to use their crude energy weapons. Instead, the Earth ships did something unexpected. They accelerated, directly toward the alien fleet at full speed. "They're on a collision course," a Vexari officer shouted in alarm. But collision wasn't the plan. The human ships were closing the distance to bring their real weapons into range. Weapons the Confederation had never encountered in space combat before. The battle for Tau Ceti was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn their first lesson about underestimating humanity. The 5 human ships raced toward the 30 Confederation vessels. On the bridge of the ESS Intrepid, Captain Howard sat calmly in his command chair. "Time to weapons range?" he asked. 30 seconds, sir, Weapons Officer Greg Foster replied. The alien ships fired first. Bright beams of energy shot across space toward the human fleet. Some hit their targets, causing the human ships to shake. Shields holding at 87%, reported Defense Officer Laura Nichols. The modifications are working. Captain Howard nodded. All ships execute pattern Bravo on my mark. He paused for 3 seconds. Mark. The 5 human ships suddenly changed direction, breaking their formation in a way that confused the alien targeting systems. The ESS Intrepid rolled to its side, exposing what looked like weak points in its armor, but were actually reinforced sections. They took the bait, Kate Wilson said, watching the aliens adjust their fire to target what they thought were vulnerabilities. Now, Mr. Foster, Howard ordered. Greg Foster pressed a series of buttons on his console. All railguns firing, missile tubes 1 through 20 launching. The side of the Intrepid lit up as dozens of projectiles shot toward the nearest alien ships. Unlike the energy weapons the Confederation used, these were solid metal objects moving at incredible speeds. The other human ships fired similar weapons at the same time. On the Confederation flagship, Admiral Zortok watched in confusion as strange objects appeared on their sensors. "What are those on?" he demanded. "Some kind of primitive projectiles," his science officer answered. "They pose no threat to our shields." But the officer was wrong. The alien shields had been designed to block energy weapons, not physical objects. The railgun rounds, made of depleted uranium and tungsten, tore through the shields like they weren't even there. The first salvo hit 3 Confederation ships. One lost its engine section completely, spinning out of control. Another suffered damage to its weapon systems. The third, hit by multiple rounds, broke apart in a series of explosions. "Impossible," shouted Zortok. "Target those human vessels and destroy them." The alien fleet adjusted their tactics, focusing all their fire on the ESS Intrepid. Energy beams hit the human ship from multiple directions. The Intrepid shook violently. "Port shields failing," Laura reported. "Hull breach. On deck 5. Seal off that section," Howard ordered. "Rotate the ship, give them our starboard side." Engineer Alan Carter's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I can give you more power to the starboard shields, but we'll lose some weapon capacity." "Doe." "It," Howard replied. On the Confederation ships, the aliens were growing increasingly confused. Their sensors showed the Intrepid had taken serious damage, yet it continued to fight. "Their weapons aren't supposed to penetrate our defenses. How are they tracking through our stealth fields?" An alien officer transmitted to the fleet. The message was intercepted by Lisa Garcia, who relayed it to Kate Wilson. Kate smiled. "They don't understand. They think everyone fights the way they do." The human ships pressed their advantage. Instead of trying to dodge the alien weapons, they absorbed hits on their reinforced sections while positioning for better shots. The Confederation ships, used to elegant long-range battles, were unprepared for such aggressive tactics. One of the human ships, the ESS Courageous, took a direct hit to its main reactor. For a moment, it looked like it would be destroyed. Instead, the ship's backup systems engaged, and it continued firing even as fires burned in parts of its hull. "The Courageous is still in the fight," Lisa reported with amazement. "Human ships are built to take damage," Howard said. "We've been preparing for war since we first looked at the stars." The battle continued for nearly an hour. The Confederation ships had superior speed and energy weapons, but they couldn't understand why their usual tactics weren't working. The human ships were smaller and less advanced, but they were tough and their weapons were devastating at close range. The ESS Intrepid took another serious hit, this time to its bridge section. Part of the ceiling collapsed, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. A support beam fell, nearly hitting Captain Howard. "Casualty reports coming in from all decks," Lisa said, her face streaked with blood from a cut on her forehead. "Medical teams are overwhelmed." Howard knew they couldn't keep fighting much longer. "All ships, execute final strike protocol." The human vessels fired everything they had in one massive barrage. Hundreds of missiles and railgun rounds streaked toward the remaining alien ships. At the same time, small objects were ejected from the human ships, space mines that drifted toward the Confederation formation. What are they doing now? Zortak demanded, as his sensors detected the new threats. Before his officers could answer, the mines detonated. They didn't cause much physical damage, but they created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled the nearest alien ships. In the confusion, the human weapons found their targets. 7 more Confederation vessels were destroyed or crippled in moments. Admiral Zortak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had lost 17 ships, more than half his fleet. The humans had only lost one, the ESS Courageous, which had finally gone silent after fighting far longer than should have been possible. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice low and filled with rage. "All ships retreat from this system." The 13 remaining Confederation ships turned and accelerated away from the battle, leaving the humans in control of Tau Ceti. On the Intrepid, the bridge crew watched the aliens flee with a mixture of relief and pride. "We did it," Greg Foster said, looking around at the damaged bridge. "We actually beat them." "For now," Captain Howard cautioned. "They'll be back, and in greater numbers." Alan Carter entered the bridge, his uniform dirty and torn. He had been working in the engine room during the battle, keeping the ship's systems running despite the damage. "The modifications worked better than I expected," he said. "But we got lucky. They weren't prepared for our style of fighting." Kate Wilson looked up from her console. "I've intercepted their communications. They're in shock. They can't believe. They were defeated by primitive humans." Howard nodded grimly. "They know better now. The element of surprise is gone." The captain stood and looked at his battered but victorious crew. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've held Tau Ceti but at a cost. And tell them to prepare every ship we have. This isn't over." As the Intrepid limped toward the mining colony to make repairs, the crew knew they had won an important victory. The aliens had mocked their ships and their technology, but now they had seen what humans could do when pushed into a corner. And across the stars, news of the battle spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. The Vexari tried to keep it quiet, but the other species heard whispers of the defeat. Some were shocked, others secretly pleased that the Vexari had finally met their match. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. News of the victory at Tau Ceti reached Earth within days. People celebrated in the streets, proud that humanity had stood up to the powerful aliens. But military leaders knew this was just the beginning. Captain Susan Miller, now promoted to Admiral, sat in a large conference room at Earth Space Defense Force headquarters. Around the table were the top military and political leaders of Earth, all looking at screens showing the damage reports from Tau Ceti. "The Confederation will not accept this defeat," Admiral Miller said. "According to our intelligence, Admiral Zortak is gathering their grand fleet, over 200 ships." The room fell silent as people considered what that meant. Earth had fewer than 50 combat-ready vessels. "How did Captain Howard's ships manage to win against such odds?" asked President Elizabeth Reyes. Engineer Alan Carter, who had been called back to Earth after the battle, stood up. He was now Chief Technology Officer of the Space Defense Force. "The Confederation made a critical mistake," he explained. "They assumed our technology followed the same path as theirs. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles. And their ships are built for speed and efficiency, not to absorb damage." He tapped his tablet and the screens changed to show new ship designs. "Based on what we learned in the battle, I've developed several new ship types. Stealth destroyers with cold-running engines that can approach undetected, carriers that can launch swarms of fighter craft, and this." He paused as an image of a massive ship appeared, the ESS Vengeance, our new flagship. The Vengeance was unlike any human ship built before. It combined Earth's rugged design philosophy with technology reverse-engineered from salvaged alien ships. "How soon can these be ready?" Admiral Miller asked. "The first ships are already under construction in the orbital shipyards," Carter replied. "The Vengeance will take longer, but we're working around the clock." In another part of the headquarters, Lieutenant Kate Wilson had been promoted and given a new assignment. Her ability to analyze alien communications had proven valuable, and now she led a team focused on understanding the Confederation's internal politics. Kate sat with Ambassador Paul Rivera, a skilled diplomat who had been trying to establish contact with other species in the Confederation besides the Vexari. "We've received an encrypted message," Kate told him, her voice low even though they were in a secure room. "It came through channels the Vexari don't monitor. It's from a species called the Vicari." Ambassador Rivera leaned forward. "What did it say?" "They want to meet secretly. They say other species in the Confederation are tired of Vexari control and are interested in an alliance with humans." This was exactly what they had been hoping for. If the Confederation wasn't as unified as it appeared, Earth might have a chance against the coming attack. "Set up the meeting," Rivera said. "Use all security precautions. If the Vexari find out, they'll punish the Vicari severely." Over the next 2 months, Earth prepared for war. The mining colony at Tau Ceti was heavily fortified. New ships rolled out of the shipyards weekly, and thanks to Ambassador Rivera's secret meetings with the Vicari, they learned valuable information about Confederation tactics and technology. Admiral Miller took command of humanity's full defensive fleet. During a briefing with her captains, she outlined their strategy. "The Confederation expects us to meet them at the edge of our solar system," she explained, pointing to a holographic map. "Instead, we'll position our forces here in the asteroid belt. We'll use the debris for cover and set up these automated defense platforms to slow their advance." Captain Howard, now commanding the ESS Defender, raised his hand. "Won't they detect our ships?" Miller nodded to Engineer Carter, who took over the briefing. "Not if we use these," he said, showing them a new device. "Cold shields. They mask our energy signatures. As long as we don't move or use active sensors, we'll blend in with the asteroids." The captains looked impressed but nervous. They were asking their crews to hide and wait while an enemy fleet entered their home system. "I know this plan requires patience," Admiral Miller said, sensing their concern. "But the Confederation outnumbers us 4-1. We need every advantage we can get." As Earth prepared, Admiral Zortok gathered his forces. The defeat at Tau Ceti had damaged his reputation within the Confederation. Some of the other species had begun questioning Vexari leadership. He needed a decisive victory to restore order. "The humans caught us by surprise once," he told his commanders. "It will not happen again. We've analyzed their weapons and tactics. Our shields have been modified to stop their primitive projectiles." What Zortok didn't know was that one of his commanders was secretly working with the Vicari resistance. Every plan he made was transmitted to Earth within hours. Finally, the day came. Long-range sensors detected the Confederation Grand Fleet entering the outer reaches of the Sol system. 217 ships moving in perfect formation toward Earth. In the asteroid belt, human ships waited in silence. On the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, Admiral Miller watched the enemy approach on her tactical display. "All ships maintain position," she ordered. "Wait for my signal." The Confederation fleet passed Neptune, then Uranus, finding no resistance. Admiral Zortok grew suspicious. "Scan for human vessels," he ordered. "They must be hiding somewhere." His sensors detected nothing unusual in the asteroid belt, just rocks and debris. The cold shields were working. Zortok decided to make a statement. He broadcast his message to all of Earth. "Your pathetic species will be subjugated or exterminated. Your choice." From her position in the asteroid belt, Admiral Miller responded, "We choose neither." That was the signal. Throughout the asteroid belt, human ships powered up their engines and weapons. The automated defense platforms activated, launching missiles at the approaching alien fleet. Fighter squadrons led by Commander Ryan Clark launched from hidden carriers, targeting the aliens' communication systems. On the ESS Vengeance, Engineer Carter activated the ship's newest weapon, gravitational distortion fields that could bend enemy fire away from human ships while amplifying the impact of human weapons. The Confederation fleet, expecting to face Earth's defenses at the edge of the system, was caught completely off guard. Instead of charging into battle as they had at Tau Ceti, the human ships fought from cover, darting between asteroids and launching attacks from unexpected directions. Admiral Zortak tried to rally his forces, but confusion spread through his fleet as human fighters disrupted their communications. And then something even more unexpected happened. Several Confederation ships suddenly turned their weapons on their Vexari commanders. The Vicari rebellion had begun, coordinated by Ambassador Rivera from Earth. As the battle raged across the asteroid belt, Admiral Zortak watched in horror as his grand fleet began to crumble. The humans hadn't just improved their weapons, they had completely changed their tactics and turned his own allies against him. The greatest space battle in Tyona human history had begun, and Earth was fighting for its survival. The battle for Earth had begun. The asteroid belt became a chaotic battlefield as human ships darted between rocks and debris, launching attacks and then hiding again. On the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, Admiral Susan Miller watched the tactical display. The human fleet was heavily outnumbered, but their strategy was working. The Confederation ships struggled to coordinate their attacks amid the asteroids. Fighter Squadron Alpha reports successful strikes on 3 Vexari command ships. Communications Officer Dan Wilson reported, "Their long-range communications are disabled." "Good," Miller replied. "Have Squadrons Beta and Gamma focus on their sensor arrays next." Commander Ryan Clark led the fighter squadrons personally. His small, agile craft were nearly impossible for the large alien ships to target effectively. The fighters swarmed around the enemy vessels like angry bees, targeting vulnerable points identified by Kate Wilson's intelligence team. "All fighters aim for the communication nodes at the base of their command towers," Clark ordered as his squadron approached a particularly large Confederation battleship. 3-second bursts, then break away. The human fighters fired their weapons with precision, causing explosions across the alien vessel's hull. Similar attacks were happening throughout the battle as human forces struck and retreated, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. On his flagship, Admiral Zortak was growing increasingly furious. His beautiful formation had broken, apart as ships tried to pursue the elusive humans through the asteroid field. And now some of his own fleet had turned against him. "Which ships are rebelling?" he demanded. "Primarily Vicari vessels, Admiral," his second-in-command reported nervously. 17 ships so far. They're attacking our command vessels." Zortak slammed all 4 of his hands on the console. "Order all loyal ships to destroy the traitors first, then concentrate on the humans." But his orders couldn't reach many of his ships because their communications had been disabled. The Grand Fleet that was supposed to crush humanity was now fighting at least 3 different battles simultaneously. Ambassador Paul Rivera coordinated with the Vicari rebels from a secure room on Earth. He had spent months building trust with them, learning about their grievances against the Vexari. "The rebellion is spreading faster than expected," his Vicari contact reported. "Ships from 2 other species have joined us, after seeing we have human support." Rivera smiled. "Tell them to focus on protecting themselves and disrupting Vexari command ships. Let the humans handle the offensive strikes." The ESS Vengeance moved out from its hiding place, revealing itself fully for the first time. The massive ship was unlike anything the Confederation had seen before, a hybrid of human ruggedness and adapted alien technology. "All weapons systems online," Weapons Officer Samantha Reed reported. "Gravitational distortion fields at full power. Target the Vexari flagship," Admiral Miller ordered. "Let's show Admiral Zortak what humans can really do." The Vengeance fired its main weapons. Instead of conventional projectiles or energy beams, it unleashed waves of distorted gravity that tore through space toward the alien flagship. When they hit, the Vexari shields flickered and failed completely, unable to counter this entirely new form of attack. "What was that?" Zortak shouted as his ship shuddered violently. "How did they penetrate our shields?" "Unknown, Admiral," his science officer replied, checking readings frantically. "It appears to be some kind of gravitational weapon. Our sensors can barely detect it before impact." On the Vengeance, engineer Alan Carter watched his creation perform, exactly as designed. He had studied the salvaged alien technology and realized that by combining it with human innovation, They could create weapons that worked outside the Confederation's understanding of physics. "The distortion fields are holding stable," he reported to Admiral Miller. "We can fire again in 30 seconds. Throughout the asteroid belt, the battle continued to go poorly for the Confederation. Their superior numbers meant little when they couldn't effectively coordinate their attacks. The human ships, moving quickly between asteroids and supported by the rebel alien vessels, inflicted serious damage while taking minimal losses. After 3 hours of fighting, nearly half of the Confederation fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered and confused, with many attempting to retreat. Admiral Zortak's flagship, damaged by multiple hits from the Vengeance's gravity weapons, limped toward the edge of the asteroid belt. The once proud admiral watched as his grand fleet crumbled around him. "How?" he whispered, his skin turning a pale gray color that indicated deep distress among his species. "How could primitive humans defeat us so completely?" As if in answer, the Vengeance appeared directly in front of his ship, blocking its escape route. The human vessel's weapons were aimed directly at the Vexari flagship's command center. "Admiral," Miller opened a communication channel. "Admiral Zortak, this is Admiral Susan Miller of Earth. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now." Zortak stared at the human woman on his view screen, the same captain whose ship he had mocked just months ago. "You tricked us," he said bitterly. "You pretended to be weak and primitive." Miller shook her head. "We never pretended anything. You saw what you wanted to see. You looked at our ships and called them crude and inefficient because they didn't match your ideas of what advanced technology should look like. You never bothered to understand that humans developed along a different path." She leaned forward. "Humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We built our ships to survive damage, not to look pretty. We designed weapons to be effective, not elegant. And most importantly, we learned to adapt and use our enemies' strengths against them." After a long pause, Zortak lowered all 4 of his arms in the Vexari gesture of surrender. "The Vexari surrender," he said. "But know that the Confederation will not accept this defeat." "The Confederation as you knew it no longer exists," Miller replied. "Representatives from the Vicari and 3 other species have already contacted Earth about forming a new alliance, one based on mutual respect, not domination." In the days that followed, the battle for Earth became known as the turning point in galactic politics. The Vexari were removed from power, and a new alliance was formed, the Alliance of Equal Species. Earth became a founding member, with Ambassador Rivera helping to draft its charter. The ESS Defiant, the ship that Admiral Zortak had once mocked, was placed in an orbital museum. Next to it hung a plaque with Admiral Miller's words, "Never judge a species by their technology alone. True advancement comes in many forms." Throughout the galaxy, other alien species looked at humanity with new respect and, in some cases, fear. The humans had proved that determination and adaptability could overcome even vast technological advantages, and they had shown that those who underestimated humanity usually lived to regret it, if they lived at all. As for engineer Alan Carter, he continued developing new technologies that combined human ingenuity with alien science. Many alien species now commissioned human-designed vessels for their own defense forces, appreciating the rugged practicality that they had once mocked. The galaxy had changed forever, and it all started because aliens hadn't understood a simple truth. Sometimes function matters more than form, and you should never judge a spaceship until you've seen it in action.